Okay, hello everybody, and we have a couple of new faces. Amazing. We would have had more if we hadn't had some technological gremlins. But there you go. Everything has an agency of purpose. Everything has a quest. So maybe your gremlins, that's their purpose, to make technology go, "Ugh." Now, interestingly enough, what actually happened was, as I do now that I eat porridge in the morning, I was watching the pocket interview things, the little article things that are on Firefox, that browser thing. And but here was this one, and the word macrophages jumped right out at me. So I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to have a look at that because that looks interesting. And it was actually discussing about looking under a microscope at what macrophages do and how they go for, like again, like with the Pac-Man thing, going for a microbe or bacterium in the plasma. And it was as if it had an actual purpose. It had agency. Now, I've just looked up agency on the Google Meister, which says an action is an uh, intervention producing a particular effect. Now, the whole point of this story was that when I was reading, and as my mind goes particularly haywire, things start to drop in. And I'm reading about it and I'm thinking about the fact that macrophages are white blood cells and they're our little knights in white in shining armour, coming to the point of a wound or a breach in the skin to kill off all those nasty microbes and eat them all up. So then I thought about Parzival, because of course he was a knight. Yeah, keep with me, it's getting there. And basically he had a quest. Now the interesting thing about the article was that the writer actually mentioned that it was the reticence of biologists to actually give the idea that a cell could have an agency of purpose. It could have a purpose, a knowing of a purpose, a consciousness, a conscious awareness of having a purpose to be there, instead of just well, why does it do that? Why would it do that if it didn't have a job to do? And I think that the definition of it was, does it have a job to do because it knows it has a job to do, or does it have a job to do because it's automatically just there? But something has to program a cell to do what it does. And since we now know that the universal or unconscious mind, whichever one you want to call it, actually lives not in our heads but in every cell of our bodies, then perhaps it does have a conscious awareness. But I wondered then, because I had time to stew on it, what our agency of purpose was as therapists, as people who heal, as people who are interested in the well-being of others, as people who coach. What is it that actually began our little journey, our quest to where we are at the moment? And I got another one because I've got a book here, and this is actually a book about storytelling, but it's not really. I don't know what he's doing, but he's not storytelling. And it goes right back to Aristotle, and he had a great word, which, if I could find it, it's absolutely wonderful. Eudaimonia, eudaimonia. This is living in a way that fulfills our purpose. So seemingly Aristotle was of the opinion that human beings, basically every human being, has a purpose, a pursuit, a quest for happiness. And that happiness is always outside of themselves, but inside at the same time. Because the goal that we have as human beings is to go forward and find that which makes us happy. So, is what we're doing at Brunetière a will, striving towards a goal, being present in the scene of a story? There's no drama, only description. So the goal actually has to have something in it that makes us work it. We have to be able to get up in the morning and go out, or get up and do something, go towards something. Otherwise, we get very depressed and very unhappy. And that Aristotle was saying way back in them days. Whereas the hedonists were saying, nah, not at all, you're wrong. But of course, as Aristotle said, you just sit in your backside and eat lotus leaves, so what do you know? So my question to you all is, what's your purpose? How'd you get here? What was it that kicked you off onto this path? What started you out? Angela.
Which bit do you want me to answer first? That wasn't a question, that was like a multiple question.
You're a multi-potentialite person, so there you go, pick one.
Yeah, I do agree that I'm a multi-potentialite person. It's interesting, that comment of there's got to be a purpose to get you out of bed in the morning. I'm not sure, I don't actually ever consciously think about the purpose that gets me out of the bed in the morning. I just do it.
Emptying your bladder one way.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. Not the first thing that comes to mind when I get up in the morning, but no, okay.
Oh, Dr. Leon.
So yeah, my reason and my why, I suppose, is the other way of looking at it. Is why not a good enough answer?
So the reason that you're a therapist is because you couldn't think of any other reason not to be.
Well, I do that many things. It's just one of the strings of my bow.
Yeah.
So I've not consciously chosen to do just the one thing. I've consciously chosen to do whatever I fancy.
No.
And I just so happen to be good at this stuff. So that's what I come along here to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're regretting asking me first now, aren't you?
No. You actually reminded me of something else that I saw about 5 minutes before we started. But anyway, I won't go into that. No, it's just that basically it's interesting to find out, as 99% of us are women here at the moment.
I love your maths, but okay.
If what we're here is 100%, then 99% of us are women.
There's not 100 of us.
Does it have to be 100 people? I mean, I've been watching the adverts. I've seen that 167% of 83% of 167 women agree. So, you know, you must be of the other percentage.
So my multi-potentialite background with my degree in maths is really quite upset at that, but okay.
You're talking to someone who's dyscalculate, so duh. The fact I'm even using the word percentage should be I
don't know what percent of the male population I am in this. I will leave that up to Angela to work out.
Yes, there you go. I was just trying to make it easy and just not, well, never mind.
Let's just move on.
Moving on, this 1%.
Moving swiftly on. So basically, we are kind of almost expected to be carers, to be the caring and softer side of things. Missed me completely, but as it turns out,
I was going to say I don't resemble that remark.
No. I think that's going into the sweeping generalisation that you love so much, Angela, because it's one of those things that there are levels of being a caring person. Mine kind of stops at the four-legged variety and doesn't really go any further.
Well, you say that, but when you're working with clients, you do actually take on a persona that cares.
Yeah.
It's just not perhaps a stereotypical.
No, that's it. It's not stereotypical. It's a case of being interested in what's going on, and I suppose, in a way, I'm a bit of a fixer.
There's also the fact that our masculine and feminine components exist in both genders.
Yeah.
And the dominance at which each of those play out in our interactions is based very much on the interactions that we've had prior to where we are at this particular moment in time. And we are the result of every single interaction that we've had previous to the here and now. So the presentation of that caring side is only based on what has gone before.
So what agency was it that set you off?
For me, I was raised in a household that in my formative years fostered over 90 children. I saw every kind of evil that could be done to a child. From the age I was 4 to the time I was 14. That shaped my entire outlook on how systems operate and how young people are at the whim of adults, both good and bad. So for me, when my journey, the path that I thought was my destiny was snapped away and I was in freefall, you end up going into what is your natural state. Because you've got none of that purpose that you thought you'd created. You can only go on, well, what do I do now? And you fall into that sense of, what do I know? What can I communicate? What am I confident about? And where is my passion? And those 4 elements for, I believe, every single person, when they come into a role that you can deliver your interactions with, you find your purpose. But until those 4 elements are all in play, we're always looking for what they are.
Okay. Annette, one of our newbies. Annette, what do you reckon to that? What you were saying?
I've been listening and kind of thinking and not really quite sure how to answer that. But for me, my purpose was derived out of my own life experiences. The reason why I do what I do is I didn't want to have, I knew that what I lived was possibly not the best life. And I knew that there was another way of doing it. And now that I've found that other way, I want to share that with other people. So by sharing, sharing the energy work, sharing the coaching, the different things that I do, and just giving people the opportunity to not, like, one of my taglines is, life doesn't have to be hard. Life doesn't have to be hard, but for so many years, like myself, similar to, I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name. I'll just call him APA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You gotta change your tag. You gotta change your thing sometimes, Dave, and put your name in. Can't
You're
hear
muted.
you.
You're muted. The saying of 2020. You're muted.
Yeah.
But
let me get that changed. Let me do that for you.
So similar to Dave, like I've had a very turbulent childhood growing up in a physically, mentally and abusive home, which left me feeling unable to love, knowing what love was, how to love or how to be loved. So searching that out and learning that, loving myself first, because I always sought after love from the external. And it took me many, many years to realize that no, love starts within first. And once I was able to love myself, that's when my life changed. And that's my purpose, is to let people know that life doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't.
And it's that knowledge that you've gained added to your confidence of that knowledge and what that means, added to that the ability to communicate it, and now people can see your passion for what it is that you do. And those 4 elements are able then to grow into other people, and that changes their world, so their life does not have to be the hard way.
Want to be my marketing manager?
Jobs are good, and there you go.
Okay, Tina, our other newbie.
Mine is very similar to what Dave said and what Annette said. Pretty rough childhood. We weren't a very tactile family, put it that way, and it was almost like you had to defend for yourself. But for me, I've had to face my own mortality 4 times now, and having that conversation with the rock of, okay, this can go one or two ways, and thankfully it's went the right way, not the wrong way. But on 3 of those occasions, I was going to an operating theatre that had been set aside for me and the specialist team. I'm an ex-nurse, so you kind of know these guys are what's going on behind the scenes. But each time going into that operating theatre, I've had the same thought of, is this it? And then you realise all the crap and all the, you don't go out thinking I shouldn't have had that last piece of chocolate cake. You go out thinking, is this it? So every time that I've sort of came over that kind of thing, it's like life doesn't need to be that difficult. So when I hear now, when I used to work in the bank, I'd hear all the young kids going about, oh my God, my kids don't have this type of shoes, or they've not got this or not got that. And life seems so difficult to them. I just wanted to say, it's not that difficult. They don't have to have the same shoes as the person down the road. They don't have to have all like a birthday party that costs £300-400. That the kid would be happy with just a cake and mum and dad there, or whoever's around to love them. So my purpose, I would say, is now and again to say to people, slow down a bit. This is it. That this is what you get, is now. And yeah, it's nice to have dreams and aspirations and things for your family, but don't miss now. And I think that's what mine comes from.
And the actual pivot point, that word again, that brought you from nursing, which is already a caring profession, but into where you are now, because you've been learning and taking diplomas already recently in coaching and hypnotherapy, haven't you?
Yep, that, and I'm doing one in NLP just now, and I'm a Reiki master as well. I think it's because I'm the eldest of the 5, I was always the caring one. It was my dad who brought us up, and mother, so I took over that maternal role. Mm-hmm. So therefore getting into nursing was quite not easy, but it was a choice that I was just transferring one skill to another. And then I ended up in banking, but that was through having been married, divorced, found myself as a single mum, starting out with literally nothing. My priority changed, so my daughter came first, and I've now got to that stage. She's a grown woman away doing her own thing, that I can now go back, if you like, and concentrate on me, but also do the things that I enjoyed rather than going out to work for a salary. I'm now a part-time carer. Funny enough, that's what I do. So I find that nurture side of me benefits me more. It makes me a better person than it does than sitting in a bank, basically.
Susan Humphreys. Thanks, Tina. You're muted, Susan. Sorry, hang on.
No. My childhood was turbulent, and I was a full-time carer for my mum and the only child. So throughout my younger years, through college, through university, I was looking after mum. So I have that caring nature and side. When I was at college, I was drawn very much to the spiritual side, but looking after mum and having to earn money, I kind of took a break from that. And then about 20 years ago, I felt drawn to massage, reflexology, Indian head massage. I just felt drawn. I just felt this move to start studying and to go back into my spiritual side. And then looking after mum, working, having a child, running a home. And then a year ago, I met a soulmate. And this soulmate took me straight back into the spiritual side. And I've been on this incredible journey this last year. And I'm trying to get Zen Den up and running. I'm studying. I'm becoming very much more spiritual. I'm trying to heal myself. And just this journey, this holy grail of looking where I'm going, it's very much healing, helping people. I don't enjoy the corporate side at all. And I feel very drawn to the spiritual side. So, and that's my continual journey. It's helping people, giving healing, supporting, and apart from healing myself, just educating myself as well, becoming a better person, trying to self-love again, all these things. So it's been a very interesting year.
So it's like we're all having a moment where we get a drive to go forward. Trudi, when did it happen to you?
Feel quite humble listening to all of you guys. I think I've always had the spiritual side of it there. It's always been present, but I just accepted it as part of life and didn't really think about it in any other way. And the Reiki came in when I was I had a knee injury, and I had a lady ask if she could do Reiki on me. I'd never heard of it, didn't know what it was. Said, "Yep, sure thing, try it." And I was blown away by it. And then it took me 10 years from after having it to actually going onto my own journey of becoming a Reiki master and teacher. And I've always loved caring for people, nurturing people, animals, always had that in me and wanted to do that side of it. So the Reiki for me was just a perfect solution to being able to nurture and care for others as well as myself. And yeah, that's kind of where I came into play.
So we've
and the rest of it.
We've kind of gone through Dave.
I'm smiling as I hear you all speak, because there is a general theme coming through. And I think it ties to our own psychological lockdowns for all of us. Everything that we have experienced through our lives, before we were in our early to mid-teens, is what we are levitated back towards as we get to the point of going, actually, do you know what? I've done what everyone else has told me to do. I've done the corporate stuff. I've done what the teachers told me. Now I want to do what is right for me. And we are levitated back to what was predominant in that pre-adolescent phase of our psychological growth. And it strikes me as something that the phrase, when you find something that makes you happy and you can make that your life, you'll never work a day in your life. We've all gone through working for somebody else, somewhere else, what somebody else tells us we should be doing. But when that breaks down, we all levitate back to what we wanted in the first place.
I find that really interesting because I have all the jobs I've done before becoming a Reiki master, I did because I chose to do them. So I wasn't ever told to do something. I just followed a path that just progressively changed as I grew up, I suppose.
Okay.
Until I found the holistic lifestyle that I was probably always drawn to, but just never found it.
And that would kind of indicate that path you were on was always external to your core.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it was my choosing the path I was on. But I think it was almost like I was just drifting on that path while I was trying to find the thing without actually knowing it. It was all very subconscious.
Yeah,
So,
the answer was always inside us. It's that inner locus of evaluation, isn't it? When we actually connect to the inside, and the inside of us as all human beings is at its strongest point before we hit adolescence. We're all coming back to what was our inner point before the world took over.
And here comes Parzival riding in.
I think it's also
sorry, I left the horse outside. Was I supposed to bring him in?
I think it's also to do with timing in the universe and when we're ready as people. I think when we're born with a purpose on this planet, and as we go through our life's journey and we have these experiences that then form us to who we are as individuals, and that in a sense gives us direction forward. And I think if the universe has a particular reason or a purpose for us, somehow it finds a way of nudging us back on course if we sort of come off the path. So I do think a lot of it is just down to timing in the universe and circumstances as well.
And asking the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually daring to ask the question in the first place.
Meeting the right people.
Yeah, but you see, this is going back to Parzival's story, because Parzival was hidden away by his mother. He was in lockdown with his mother because his mother had already lost his father and his two brothers to battle. and she decided that she was going to secrete him away so she would never lose him. But of course, life has an interesting way of smacking you between the eyes sometimes. And while he's in the wood playing in the clearing, a bunch of knights come riding by, and it's like, oh, love at first sight almost. I want to do that. And of course, Mother is then totally bereft and tells him, don't ask any questions. Keep your mouth shut. So Parzival ends up looking for something that he can't find because he can't talk about it. He doesn't know what it is, but he also knows that he's not allowed to ask questions because he was actually quite a dutiful boy apart from the time that he left his mother. And in doing so, he didn't get his grail when he could have got it. So really, in terms of the universe, Susan, as you were talking about, he wasn't ready for it because he wasn't ready to give up and let go of his mother's apron strings almost.
Yeah.
The whole thing, because there's a whole thing about a shirt that he had to wear that she'd made for him that was a homespun thing that he was told never to take off. And it was only after he'd lost the grail the first time that he realised he was going to have to take the shirt off and leave behind childish things, leave behind that part of his life. And up to that point, all of his life had been duty, like you said, Dave. It was a case of, this is what you do, you will do this because I tell you to, I need you to do this. Then he put his duty into his king, because that's what knights did. So that would be the caring kind of, yes, I'm going to go and get the dragon for you, darling. Not a problem at all. But of course, as soon as he's done that, he can't even fall in love because he's looking for purity. He's looking for perfection, and he doesn't understand it when he sees it. Because again, he's not asking the questions. He's just doing what he does and then looking and seeking elsewhere.
Yeah.
So his purpose is to find something. Our purpose, it would seem, is that we're all on a journey. We've all decided that we're on this road, this path we've taken, and we're on it for a reason. I was interested to find out, do we know the reason yet? Or did we ever get a glimpse of the reason? Because like Parzival gets a glimpse of the Grail so he knows what he's missed. How did it work?
I don't even know what path I'm on.
The age 37.
I'm just going with it. It's really interesting listening to the conscious decisions and all the rest of it. I've just kind of fallen into everything I've done. I don't think I've actually consciously decided to do anything, to be honest. Like, ooh, opportunity.
Yeah, well, you consciously decided to leave IT.
No, I didn't. Someone else made me leave.
Oh.
Twice.
Were you just going to sit there and be bored?
No, I don't do boards. I'll just randomly pick stuff. So if somebody says, "Oh, do you want to do this?" Go on then.
Yeah, I've noticed that about you.
I do joke that I'll turn up to the opening of an envelope, but yeah, whatever comes up.
Angela, honey, anybody will do that these days. Give enough the chance.
But yeah, so if we were going back to the teenage years, I would now be off going to learn how to be a fighter pilot. So I don't think that's working.
Well, it's all over the telly. You can do
it was that or astronaut. I was determined I was going to be as a young teenager. So yeah, I don't know if I don't. For me, I don't feel as if there's been a conscious plan or a conscious decision or that's the right path for me. I'm a little bit like yourself, Trudi. Someone told me to go and try this stuff, and I was like, yeah, that just sounds like absolute nonsense. I think I was a little bit stronger worded when I said it. 8 years later, the woman that was working with me said, "They're doing some training courses. Do you fancy it?" Of course.
Angela has training-itis.
Yeah. I'm an academic junkie, basically.
She's a certificate hoarder.
Yes, but we did that last month. We don't need to do it again this month.
We're just letting Annette know, because Tina knows you well. We're just letting Annette know how the land lies.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, I don't know, I like Aristotle's idea about searching for happiness, but I also understand the whole thing about goals, and we seem to be going towards goals without sometimes even knowing that that's what we're doing, as in falling into stuff. It's like we've almost had our radar set for us, in some way, and we just we'll follow that. Yeah, we'll go there. Dum, 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 dum.
Yes, if you go with the viewpoint a couple of you mentioned about the universe has decided for you or whatever, then I've got absolutely no qualms with just falling into whatever comes up. It doesn't scare me. It doesn't bother me. It'll work out in the end, and if it doesn't work out, I'll follow that other path instead.
You'll be off to the moon. Bye.
Given half a chance.
Oh, I know. Listen, I think you've already got your ticket booked for Mars. I wouldn't put it past you. I really wouldn't put it past you. But going back to the fact that, you know, this stuff has been going on since the way back when they were still in togas and sandals. Oh, actually, they still do that, don't they? But,
part of the human condition, isn't it?
yeah, but it's something that, there's the word, compelling. What's compelling us? I mean, I know that for myself, it was a case of I'd spent so much of my formative years hiding. If I wasn't in the cupboard under the stairs, I was at the local zoo, staying out of the way.
And there's the clash between Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts.
Really, because Harry Potter went to the zoo and spoke to the snakes.
Yeah.
He also lived in the cupboard under the stairs.
Yeah. And I did that too. That's where I did my formative education, my reading.
Do we need to look really closely to see if we can see that scar on your forehead?
Well, it's not a scar so much. I had it removed. It's a dent now. It's just a dent. I can play too.
We know.
But it's one of those things that I can vaguely pinpoint. Well, I can pinpoint a few places where my life took a turn towards an interesting outcome. That, and sometimes a painful one too. However, I hadn't really put it down to that's going to take me to talking to people, to working with people, because that was like an anathema to me. That was, that's too scary, can't do that. No, just, you know, talk to animals, that's it. I think I watched too much Johnny Morris in Zoo Time when I was a and possibly allowing me to watch Dr. Dolittle 3 times in a row at the cinema probably wasn't a good idea. But this is what happens though. It's when we see people going about what they're doing, and I don't know about you, but a lot of my clients are coming in and they're really upset without being able to put their finger on it. And it's usually because they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing.
There's also a disconnect between how people feel and what people think.
Yeah.
You know, how many times do we hear parents ask a child, what do you think you're doing? But we never ask them how they feel. And if we don't understand how we feel, if we can't label the emotion, then our thought processes 9 times out of 10 are going to be dictated by somebody else's perception of how we feel because of our presentation. And we never get to the bottom of how we actually feel about something or what to do with it. So we're always going on the psychological, what do we think? But how many therapeutic professionals ever ask a client, what do you think you're coming here for? We're asking how people feel, because we know that actually the emotional well-being will always feed the psychological and the thought pattern. And when my gut instinct is if we can get back to the thought process being secondary to the emotional process, we're going to be able to make more progress and understand ourselves a lot quicker and a lot more deeply.
So are you saying that basically the emotion comes first and then the thought comes second?
No, I'm not. That's going to be different for absolutely every single person on the planet. But what I'm saying is if we exclude the emotional and only focus on the thought, we are counting out a massive part of that equation in ourselves, and our inner locus of evaluation is going to have a gap in it.
But as people, we haven't been brought up to think about how we feel or to express that in a way that, particularly in our culture, and you hear it all the time. How you doing? Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, fine. Doing fine. They could be dying inside, and they'll still say, "Oh, I'm fine."
So is that perhaps where we come into play, that we're no longer in the corporate world and the banking industries and the IT, wherever we come from before, if we've changed careers, and we're now looking at helping people delve into that. How do you feel? What's the emotion behind that? And how does that inform your thought process? So that's maybe what our place in the world is, perhaps, if you want to come down to that.
Yeah, and it's that because we've actually managed to figure out that it's about what we feel and how we feel and why we feel it.
Even the Dalai Lama has said for decades that if, and probably previous Dalai Lamas as well, I'm not counting them out, that if we can get children to understand how they feel before we start to explore how they think, then they will be better individuals, because they will be connected emotionally, psychologically, and physically. And they're the three components that, as a Western society, we have destroyed the connection between.
Oh, of course we have. But isn't it true that the reason that we have the cliche of the terrible twos is because by the age of 2 years old, they're feeling so many things and so much stuff is going on in their brain that they can't verbalize it yet. And it's the frustration of not being able to verbalize what they're feeling and what they're wanting. They know what they want, they know what they're thinking, but they just don't know how to say it.
And the majority...
That comes again at teenagedom, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the majority of adults don't know how to communicate in that situation.
I was wondering about that. Do you think it's a case of that we are physiologically, psychologically, and emotionally bound to, once we've passed a certain age, forget the language of being a teenager or a child? It's like
I'm quite happy to shout that's not fair if you want.
Well, you do anyway. So we know that.
So does that then mean I've not come out my teenage years yet?
I want to see how
I am going to put my hand up and say that I have been suffering from arrested adolescence since the age of 11. And I don't care. Good fun. And, basically, as far as I'm concerned, the day I grow up is the day I've decided to leave.
Yeah. I don't want to grow up, it's boring.
Yeah.
Have that inner child, let it out.
I decided that I was an adult basically when I'd come back from Monaco and I was walking down a street in London and I had a skirt on and a pair of very sensible shoes. And I thought, my God, I've grown up.
I love it.
I was disgusted with myself. Totally disgusted with myself. I couldn't figure out, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
So did you very quickly regress?
Oh yeah, I got into a pair of scrubs as soon as I possibly could.
Going straight into Carnaby Street and got rid of them shoes.
Yeah.
No, I went back into the vets and never came out again. pair of theatre clogs and a set of scrubs. Lived in them for like 20 years.
Is that not just like glorified pyjamas?
Yeah, it's great. And they expand with your waistline. You don't even have to think about it. And they're so easy. You just take them off at night and stick them in the wash and hang them up and they're dry in the morning.
There you go, adulting again.
Yeah, like I ever did that.
It isn't as much fun, is it?
But anyway, this is the thing though. It's a case of sometimes that timer inside of us, there seems to be a timer, decides which stage of life we're going to be at. Now sometimes the timer is hormone driven, so those hormones have got a purpose in making us realise that we're about to step into another state of being, another part of our lives. And that's probably the best reason I've ever found to have hormones. The best useful reason, anyway. Because let's face it, they're really interesting things to have. But when we're doing that though, how did we become so divorced from the connection of the mind, body, and spirit that we actually have compartmentalized and just yanked one of them out and sat them over there, and then deride people because they don't believe, or they don't believe what you're telling them, what that that there is a combination of, when it's not their fault. Like you say, they've been brought up with the idea that that doesn't happen, that's not normal, it's weird.
Nothing wrong with embracing your weird.
Oh, I embraced it all the
Weird is
time.
good.
It's the best thing I ever did.
Absolutely. But interesting, you were saying that you were doing a lot of sweeping generalizations there as well, with
I
we
know.
as a group, as a nation, as a country, as a planet.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is the case. I don't think everybody is locked up tight. And I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think that's what we as a collective group of people are working towards, helping others to unlock that, to pull the mind, body, spirit back together again.
For the most part, I was really only talking about Western culture.
Okay, so as a most part, we tend, I think everyone on the call live in the Western culture. So the clients we've probably got are all Western too.
Yeah. So we're a little bit.
I think a lot of the professionals, the practitioners that come into the therapeutic arena have got a much more open approach to understanding things from outside of the standard Western approach. We've got an understanding that the approach the West has built generally is roughly 300 years old and has roughly been about controlling other groups of people. And when we look at the groups that were controlled, they tended to be more balanced, more connected emotionally, psychologically, physically. They were also more connected to the world around them. And that didn't sit with the power bases at the time. The therapeutic community is probably the one single community that is driving back to what was in place before from those communities that were controlled.
So the agency of the therapeutic community is to intervene and balance out and knock the rough edges off the rough cultures.
Being balanced, bringing, for want of, coining George Lucas, the purpose is for the therapeutic side to really be Darth Vader and bring balance back to the Force. The whole kind of role of balance is not to be good, bad, or indifferent, but to bring balance. And the individuals that we engage with to allow them to find their balance.
So it's like recalibrating, bringing into alignment that's which is out of alignment. So it's not really a fact of that you're going to take a spiritual sandpaper to something and rub it all down until it's nice and smooth. What you're going to do is you're going to say, look, this just needs to flow a little bit, like Angela does with me when she's reining me in and telling me to
it's allowing people to find the balance within themselves rather than telling them what the balance is.
And the thing is that we all have that balance. Every human being has that. Every living being has that balance.
We don't all live it though.
No. I was just thinking sweeping generalisation to say that.
And sometimes we need to help. We need some help to be put back into balance. And again, I think that's a lot of what the therapies do. So I know for what I do, the first thing I do is make sure your meridian energy is balanced in every session I run. So I think, absolutely balance is step one with whatever I'm working on with clients. So yeah, I'm all over the balance aspect.
Annette, what are you like with balance?
what am I like with balance, or what do I
Yeah,
like?
that was a very Scottish way of saying something there.
Got a Canadian here. You got to speak a little English.
Well, yeah, I know, but you've got a lot of Scots over there. You've got a lot of Scots over there.
My sister-in-law is actually Scottish, and sometimes when she goes off on a tangent, I don't even understand her. I just go, slow down. Just slow down.
Have you understood anything Leslie said today?
Oh, I've understood everything.
Okay,
everything.
that's a
Oh,
good
yeah,
change.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Oh, if I don't, I'll let you know.
Okay, shut up then, shall I? You can do it, Angela. You've got a nice voice.
Oh, I've spoken with Leslie before, so it's all awesome.
No, when we're talking about alignment, you do a lot of stuff with getting people back into balance, don't you?
Yes, I do, with the energy work, using like when Angela was saying about the meridians. So I work with the energy using Reiki as energy work similar to Reiki to help bring in the balance of the energy fields. But I also find too that there's also the balance not just in the energy field, but there's also the balance in the mind. So if our minds are constantly telling us that we're not good enough, that, why are you doing this? Who do you think you are? You're not going to have that balance to bring up, to raise your vibration. We have to shift that thinking in the mind and actually catch ourselves. And that's something that I've actually been doing in the last couple of weeks, is realizing that, ooh, that inner self-talk isn't very good. Okay, how can we switch this? What are we really feeling? So basically teaching, like healing myself in a sense, like doing that deep inner work and taking a look at that to get that balance in the mind, because I find that if the mind is out of balance, the energy fields in the physical will also be out of balance.
I think it was interesting. I was listening. I find it great that I can say that I was listening to a book earlier on today by Sandra Ingerman, and talking about rebalancing and bringing back into alignment what's going on, as I think she put it, that particularly talking about weather patterns, etc., the chaos that was going on outside with the climate change and weather change is possibly a projection or a mirroring of what is going on inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're actually manifesting that kind of situation because our balance is so out of whack, and we're so frustrated that the amount of energy that we have already inside our heads, even only inside our heads, with the electrical activity that goes on in there, it would be easy to understand how giving that as a projection could cause a lot of chaos outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
As human beings, we're always trying to prove ourselves right. Whatever it is we decide, we try and prove ourselves right. So we make a decision. It's one of the examples that I use when I'm doing corporate coaching, certainly within the hospitality sector, as it used to be, is someone walks into a coffee shop and they know they want to get a drink, but they haven't decided whether they're going to stay in the coffee shop, sit and drink, or whether they're going to have a takeaway, right? Within the split second that it takes them to walk into that coffee shop, they will decide whether or not they are going to sit in or not. And they will then look around while they're in the queue to justify what that decision is. So if the place is too busy, it's too loud, I'm definitely not stopping. See, I was right to come out. We look for reasons to justify our decisions rather than actually go, let me actually prove myself wrong here and make a different decision. As soon as we've made a decision, we're looking for reasons and we project why we are right onto near enough every situation that we face.
I mean, that brings me back to Mr. Storr here, who did his science of storytelling, and basically, as far as he's concerned, we are all actually driven by story, which I agree with to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
But we make the story ourselves, and our memories actually help us to embroider our truth and our way of seeing things. So when we think of going into the coffee shop, perhaps, the decisions that we make are also based on how we want to see ourselves how we want to be the hero of our own story by, well, you saved yourself some time of not sitting next to that person there, or not getting your coffee and then trying to find a place to sit and having to stand at the window, So I get what you're saying there. And it's also something that, as far as bringing things to bear are concerned, with how we find ourselves, how we're going where we're going and getting where we get, we do tend to align ourselves with energies that match. So if we are going to be in a chaotic state, we will very much be comfortable with others who are in chaotic states. And that's when it's interesting to see when someone who's balanced comes in to that arena, how that is affected, because one would think that normally it would probably be that the chaos would overtake the balance. But actually balance seems to be stronger than chaos, just because it's quiet.
Yeah, and the whole drive of the human being is to find the balance, to find that point where we are comfortable, we are happy internally. So as much as the chaos is going on around us, we're always driving to find that inner point of comfort that comes from the balance.
So how does everybody else think about that?
I think there's definitely you've got to be in balance with what's going on, and if it's not in balance, then you need to be able to know how to harmonize the situation. But it's a fight, or you want to. If you're going into a situation that's not in balance, you can immediately feel it if you're in tune with energy, and you'll either want to stay there and harmonize it, or you'll want to run away from it. That's, and I remember going to a meeting once, and it all got a bit lively and it all got a bit loud in the room. And 3 people, all energy workers, came up to me quietly and said, "I'm sorry, but I need to leave." And I said to them, "It's perfectly okay. If I could leave, I would, but I can't because I'm hosting it." And I remember how they all felt, because it was just escalating into this huge, massive, very high chaotic energy rather than a balanced energy. They couldn't manage it. They just wanted out. They wanted to get away from it.
So would we say that our purpose, our agency of purpose, has got to do with a bridging idea of what we are here for, but also taking it on an individual, case by case, time by time, event by event basis?
Isn't that the definition of just living your life? We're constantly making decisions, we're constantly making choices. So it's going to be constantly in flux, going between the chaotic and the balanced, and the more we work in this field, the more time we spent balanced. So yeah, for me that's just life. Or am I making it too simple?
Can it ever be too simple?
Isn't it what we make it?
That's a song. That's possibly somewhere to leave it on now. So is there anything that anybody else would like to say?
I think we've been balancing since prehistoric times. I think we look at the yin and yang, we look at the sun and the moon, and I think it's human nature that we do try and find balance, from giving gifts to the gods, praising the sun, praising the moon, Stonehenge, the pyramids. We've been healing ever since Dot, the Egyptians with their oils, the Romans, the Greeks. So I think as we've gone through time, it's just been a natural thing that we do. And I think people that want to need to heal have to be in that right place at the right time. If they give out negative energy, they'll have negative things come back to them. If they are positive about things, they'll have positivity come back to them. And sometimes out of chaos, sadness, what I call tower moments, when everything collapses, those things sometimes have to happen for new beginnings. So in life, as it's a journey, and we constantly are learning lessons that make us and form us who we are as we go through life, it's a huge learning curve. And sometimes when we don't want these negative, these bad things to happen, embrace them, because it could give you a new start, and life could be even better than the previous journey.
And with that, I think we're back to Aristotle, and we should say good night. So, next time.